This is an Annapolis bonus podcast.
Well, I'll tell you, Annapolis Symphony Orchestra is celebrating their 63rd season this year, and that kind of kicked off on Labor Day, sort of, with the Pops in the Park, but it really gets underway with the first Masterworks in October. But today we're also chatting about another big anniversary, a 20th anniversary for the creative director and the maestro, Jose-Luis Novo. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me into your office here. And I see that you have that huge guard dog keeping everybody safe in here.
People would need to see what kind of dog we are talking about.
Right. But, 20 years, that is a huge number for almost any career. And I know that a lot of your type, the maestros, the musicians, you move around.
Yeah.
And that 20 to me seems very long for someone as a creative director, artistic director, creative director,
artistic director and conductor.
Yeah. How did you get here?
Well, I got here because the Annapolis Symphony advertised an opening on the music director position. And I knew of the Annapolis Symphony at the time, and I sent my application. And at the beginning, I was a little reluctant because, I guess I sent my application after a year. I didn't hear anything. It was a very long process. I think it all lasted pretty much two years. And I sort of assumed that I was not being considered for the job. And then the following year, I did get a call, and the search committee was interested in my application, and they wanted to have further conversations. And to make long story short, I ended up making it to the shortlist, and then I was invited to conduct one of the Masterworks programs, which was basically the audition for each of the different candidates.
Wow. Well, I'm glad they took that long to do it, because you've been an incredible asset to the city and the organization for 20 years.
I guess I should compliment the search committee, because these things don't go well very often. Choosing a music director or artistic director of an orchestra is a very complicated process, and oftentimes it doesn't turn out as stable or successful as in this case. And I guess they did a good job.
Well, it's got to be a little bit more complicated than hiring an executive assistant or somebody else in a typical type of a job. Because you can really sort of vet out everything else. But we've got an orchestra which has 70 members.
Yeah.
So you've got to get along with all 70 of them.
Yeah. And I should say, maybe you don't have to expect to get along with all of them. But if you are able to respect all of them and make them respect you, then we can all get along, so to say. So I think that the important thing is assuming that you can't please everyone, but the quality of your work should be what people respect.
Well, I think they certainly do after this many years here. But do you have what are some of your memorable times? 20 years, you've had a career here. And is there anything that stands out, good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, lots of memories. One great highlight for us as an organization was the international tour we did to Spain in the summer of 2022, because that was kind of the stamp of making this orchestra at an international level. We had always been seen as a regional orchestra with a good reputation, but going from that to being able to go to a different country with a great musical tradition and being able to perform in the same concert halls where all the great symphony orchestras in Europe perform, and being compared at the same level and even very complimentary to many of those orchestras, that was a real achievement.
But I've got to think that Annapolis, we're very, very fortunate in Annapolis to have professional companies here. And we have the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, obviously. But when I say professional companies, these are the folks that put food on their table with their music, with everything else.
Yeah, we are not amateurs. It's like when you think about the arts, you think of the prototype of the artist that is starving and that does the artwork because they love what they do, but they don't get paid for it. But we are working about professionals that their lives is based on making artwork.
They're feeding their families and everything else. But and the professional companies that we have in Annapolis for such a small town, we've got the Annapolis Symphony, we've got the Ballet Theater of Maryland, we've got the Annapolis Opera Company, we've got the Classic Theater of Maryland, and then there's a couple of other smaller groups. I know Compass Rose is professional upstairs here at Maryland Hall, and then we've got all of the community theaters. But when you come to see the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, I mean, you're not seeing Frank down the street that's pretty good on the trumpet. Okay, I mean, or Andy down and who's playing those trombone down there. I mean, that's great that he does.
The most common comment that we get is from people that attend one of our concerts for the first time is, I didn't realize the Annapolis Symphony was this good, and that's I'm thrilled to hear that all the time. And going back to what you were saying, that was one of the reasons why I was happy to accept this position when they offered to me, was that I thought Annapolis had a lot of potential as a town that embraces the arts and supports the arts. And I thought there was a lot of way for growth and for building up within a community that is not isolated, and that is not isolating music against everything else, but it's the music is part of a wider texture.
I've said in a number of podcasts, I've talked with different musical artists lately, that music is just so universal. And it doesn't matter whether it is classical here at the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, or rock, or country, or jazz, or rap, or whatever it may be, that you get a bunch of people in the room that would normally be fighting like cats and dogs out on the street, whether they're right or left, or gay or straight, or black or white, or whatever it is. You get them into the Maryland Hall, into the main theater, and the sound comes up from the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, and all that goes out of the window. Okay, we're all together experiencing an experience that's something that we have in common. We've got so much more in common than we think we do. But
yeah, and I think that's the beauty of music, is that it's a universal language, and it puts all these barriers away. And when you put people in front of music and it touches their feelings and their emotions, then we all become more human, and then we forget what differentiates us, and we focus more on what unites us, especially in experiences like this, which is what we should try to do most of the time.
True. Over your 20 years, I mean, let's just say that instead of celebrating your 20th anniversary here at the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, you've submitted your resignation. You said, okay, I'm retiring. And we're having a farewell season for Maestro Novo. What do you hope when you leave here, which hopefully is not anytime soon, that you've left behind?
Well, let me tell you first that as much as I had high hopes for this position, I didn't think that I would stay here this long because as you said, conductors don't stay around in orchestras very long. I think a 10-year tenure would have been a good amount of time. But I think the important thing is that we've been growing all together, and we've been improving together, and that has been the basic food for us to stay working together, enjoying what we do. I think as long as we keep that path, we will all be happy. At the point where I see that we are limiting ourselves, or that I am a limitation to the orchestra, then I think that would be a good time for me to say goodbye. And when we do that, I want to leave thinking that this organization is much better now than when I joined in at the beginning. This is one of the things that I'm proud of this organization, is that we have always kept pushing forward no matter what the circumstances were. And I think that has been the quality, one of the best qualities of this organization, is that we've always made the best independently of the circumstances we were in. And COVID was definitely a very challenging time.
Sure.
And we were one of the first orchestras to live stream concerts live. It was not tape them and then put them on we were live streaming as we were playing. And I think that that's not something that the Baltimore Symphony, the National Symphony, did. Just as an
that's true. You're leading the charge. Well, I think your legacy is secure, and anyhow, but and you do things that are so differently. I mean, I'll go back to a couple of weeks ago to Pops in the Park, and you did that whole cell phone thing, which is very, very unique and very different. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was what was it, a tribute to Broadway?
Yeah,
which again was something that was just sort of out of the norm for the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra as opposed to the classical. And I mean, it really shows that the depth of the organization.
Well, it's what you were saying earlier. Music is music. We call classical music on a symphony orchestra because you have to call it something. But we all make, or we all try to make music that moves us. And I think what's important is that you need to connect with your community. This example of the cell phone variations that we did, the iPhone variations and the cell phone concerto, were just a sampler of how to welcome technology that we are all familiar and almost tired of using, and making it live with the arts, which oftentimes it's been perceived as an elitist way of perceiving life. It's not such a thing. You can make art and you can use a cell phone, which we all do, and it's the same thing. And if you manage to do that and people see it, they realize, of course, you can make art with anything. It's just a different way of approaching life that is maybe a little more creative, but is very valid.
Well, the creativeness is amazing. I was talking to a country artist, Terry McBride, who's written for all the big names and stuff like that. He's got a number of Grammys and stuff like that. And he currently has an original song that he wrote that's a #1 hit in Belgium because there was an EDM producer that liked the lyrics of it. And I mean, and it was my pickup truck ran away with my dog. And, that's what it was over here. But he turned around and took it. And I mean, he's like famous over there with it, so it really is a universal language.
Absolutely. And again, going back to these iPhone variations, this was a piece that we discovered on the internet. It was a young composer, 18 years old, Korean American, that put this piece on a computer version on the net. And we thought, this is really good. So we should do the world premiere for him, and he's thrilled beyond belief because he's kind of now being noticed by the professional
other people.
And I think that this is the beauty of the world that we live in now, is that we are also interconnected. It's so easy for the good and for the bad. Because when you do something bad, it explodes all over.
True.
But when you do something good, then it quickly reaches lots of people.
That's wonderful. There's always been a debate too and we'll use air quotes that nobody can see, but the classical music, but between tradition and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And you've really innovated throughout your career here. And how did you balance the two? I mean, I've got to imagine when you probably came in here, and as you said yourself, there was an entirely different audience because we've grown this audience and everything else that is appreciative of the ASO. How did you balance the two of the innovation? Because I can see you coming in and like, what is he doing to Beethoven? Why would he, why did we hire him?
Well, and I think that this is a very good point. I think that you have to depart from where your audience is, and you have to bring them along. And that's always what I have tried to do. But always thinking, this is where I would like to go. So every time you add one more or two more elements that innovate, that there are a new way of experiencing music that your audiences might not have experienced. And that might not mean that they don't like it. That might mean alone that they've never been exposed to it. And the natural reaction to something we have not been exposed to, it is defensive. explaining and coaching and justifying why I think it's important to do what we do and why I think it's important to listen to composers that they are not so famous, but that we think they are really very high quality. And I think when you do the explaining and you show the path, then many people come along.
Well, you've mentioned that you explain to the audience, and that's one thing that I will say for those that have never been to an ASO performance. It's not your grandmother's symphony. Just like, the opera and today's opera and today's ballet, it's not the same one that you think of the ladies in their fancy dresses and the gloves are going up their arms and whatnot. I mean, there's perhaps to your dismay, I mean, there's shorts and boat shoes and T-shirts.
That's perfectly fine with me. I don't think we should require a dressing code for our concerts.
Right. I mean, to expand, well, I mean, certainly look during COVID, the way you expanded. I mean, you expanded your audience out to, not just a regional Annapolis Symphony Orchestra. You took that out to the world, literally to the world.
Yeah.
And really sort of upped our thing. But the way you conduct and the way that you turn around, and as you said, you do explain, you don't just get up there and conduct and let the orchestra, the symphony, do the show and then just take the claps and leave. This is why we're doing it. This is, let me introduce this piece to you. Let me tell you. And so you're really telling a story along with the music that's going there. And it really gives the audience, I think, a much greater appreciation of it than if you were just to sit down there. If I was a big Mozart aficionado, which, I am not, but to sit there and go, oh yeah, well, that's the end of the, and do the polite clap. I think it really educates people. And I think, it's a beautiful thing.
Well, that's why I think it's so important to show our audiences why we do what we do. And if we are performing a program like this season, commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, what does that mean in music? Well, it means lots of things. It means that we are much more inclusive than we were 60 years before and before then. That means that our society is becoming more diverse, is becoming richer because we have people from all walks of life that in the past didn't have the rights that every human being in a modern society should have. And now we do. And I think if we illustrate that in music, it becomes all the way more powerful because nobody or many people don't enjoy talking about pieces of legislation. But if you see what great pieces of legislation do in the formation of your community and your society, then it becomes much more interesting.
You mentioned the 60-year anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, and that is the theme for your 63rd season.
Yeah.
Here, which again gets underway in the beginning.
So we are a little older than the Civil Rights Act.
There you go. A little bit gets underway at the beginning of October. The other dates people want to keep in their calendars, the holiday pops on December 13th, and you're adding up another one up in Severna Park High School on 14th. So you've got two chances to see that wonderful show that sells out just like that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the 63rd season. It gets underway, I think, like October 3rd. 4th, 5th, right in that first...
Yeah, the first weekend of October.
Of October. And you have designed, is that the proper word? Designed the whole...
Yeah, design is good.
The Masterwork series around the Civil Rights Act?
Yeah, well, that's sort of the connecting element in the whole season. And that means that we are going to be featuring composers and guest artists and works of art that represent that diversity and that richness of our modern society. So there will be at least one or two elements of that in each of our programs that will be emphasized and that will illustrate the anniversary.
How tough is it to design a series?
It's difficult because you have to do it in a way that is organic and that doesn't seem just like you have to avoid tokenism. It's not just a postcard of something. You have to do it in a way that is meaningful, and you have to do it in a way that reinforces the value of the anniversary that we are celebrating. If it's just a meaningless act, then it doesn't do the job.
So there's not a book in your desk drawer that you put out and this is okay for the 63rd season we're doing this. And
no, there are no books, and I think that if for all the technology that we have these days, and even the artificial intelligence and this, I actually run some searches on artificial intelligence about this, and the results that I got were very, very superficial. So it was not very helpful, which made me think that we still have a long way to go to coordinate this type of complicated thought processes that require much more than that data accumulation and putting it all together. That's the beauty of the human brain, is that we're still discovering it, and the artificial intelligence reflects only what we know about our brain and lots of data coordination, but not all the aspects of our brain that we're still discovering.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. And again, it sort of reemphasizes that when you come to a performance, that this is a unique, I mean, this is not going to be heard again anywhere.
Exactly.
And I imagine there's probably little burps and hiccups during each performance that, is going to make one different from the other. But, that's the really unique.
That's live music. And it's like when you go to a bar and you have a drink or you have a coffee, you don't go just for the drink. You go for the experience. You're going to meet friends. You're going to probably see other people. And that's what you're doing. If you just want the drink, you can have it at home. But you don't do it that way. Why? Because we are social creatures and we want to experience those things in the company of other people that will appreciate them with us and share that experience, and then interchange or compare or just interact in a way that is going to make it much more enjoyable and enriching than if we were doing that at home alone.
Well, I'm thankful that we're able to do this now with COVID in our rearview mirror, to be able to do, because for 2 years we weren't.
I think that makes us appreciate this so much more now.
It certainly does. For those that are listening that may not have ever seen the ASO, first of all, shame on them. But second of all,
it's never too late.
Exactly. Well, what performance, which one of the masterworks, or maybe it's something else, would hook somebody that has never experienced the ASO to say, I need to be here?
That's a good question. And this is always like when people ask you, which one is your favorite child?
I'm not going to go there.
No. It's hard to answer, because for me, I craft every program with the same care. For me, when people ask me, which one is your favorite program this season? I said, well, the one that I'm currently doing, because that's the one that I'm focusing in more. But I think that there are some programs that they are very appealing. I would say the opening program is very appealing because it has a lot of everything. It has new music by living composer Tania Leon, who's pretty much a living, living history, because she's the prototype of what the Civil Rights Act has achieved. She's a female. She's from Cuba. She's a person of color, and she had everything against her to become a major composer, and she has become a major composer, and she has made a great stamp on the arts. So that already on its own, it's a way of opening the season with a big statement, and I think that she's going to be very appealing to especially young people, because I think that people will identify with all what this country means of opportunities.
Well, you talked about it with the young people and everything else, and a lot of the stereotype of the symphony is my grandmother with the gloves up her arms and going, with the opera glasses. I guess you don't wear them in the symphony, but depending on where you're sitting. But this is a program for all ages.
Exactly.
And I do notice that you're actually working with Art Farm this year. You've also got the Annapolis Symphony Academy, which works with youth, and you've got the Orion
Youth Orchestra.
Youth Orchestra as well. So, I mean, don't for a minute, the folks that are listening, think that this is the old man and the old lady experience, because it's totally not.
And this is, again, going back to when you were asking what makes me tickle in these 20 years. Well, the Academy, for instance, it's one of the things that we are most proud of, because now we are on our 6th year, and we have a youth orchestra, we have a string ensemble, a wind ensemble, chamber music ensembles, and discovery programs. So we are educating our youth since they are 3 or 4 years old, all the way until they go to college when they are 18. I think that's an incredible value for our community, that our musicians and our professionals are helping our youth to be in touch with the music and providing the means for them to learn musical instrument and to play in musical ensembles, and let them discover music their own way. We don't expect they will become professional musicians, but that's their call. And some of them will, some of them won't, and that's irrelevant. But we are creating the new generation of music lovers.
True. I still, my mother's passed away, but I still am ticked off at her for not forcing me to learn something, whether it be the piano, the guitar, or whatever. It didn't matter. But I have no musical ability whatsoever. And my girlfriend reminds me of that every Sunday at church. It's not working. Can't you hum? That's fine. But yeah, I mean, it is an experience for everybody. And I mean, I liken the symphony to sort of a Grateful Dead show, in that you may have a 70-year-old or 80-year-old man with his, I'll do the math, like a 60-year-old or a 50-year-old kid who's there with his 30-year-old kid, who's there with his 3-year-old kid. And they're all sharing an experience. You've got 4 or 5 generations and they're all grooving to the Grateful Dead, and you're all grooving to the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra that's here.
And I think that's beautiful, because that's exactly how we want to be perceived, as we are trying to reach everyone. We don't put age limits, and we try to appeal our audiences in all age ranges. And because again, music is a universal language, and it's never too early, and it's never too late to enjoy music. That's why, even if you're complaining that you never had a chance to learn a musical instrument, well, that doesn't mean that you won't enjoy music.
No, I'm a huge music lover, but it's just I just can't do it.
Well, but usually the people that learn a musical instrument when they are young, they enjoy music for the rest of their life. So it is a safe path to become a music lover.
Well, I will say that ASO has really been just a leader in the community as far as getting that music out there. Okay, we talked about the 2 orchestras for the youth, the Youth Symphony Academy, the Annapolis Symphony Academy, the string orchestra, the Orion Orchestra. You do that wonderful free Pops in the Park concert that expanded a couple of years ago from 1 park to 2 parks.
And what many people don't know is that we do much more than that. I mean, everyone knows about the performances that we do because they are advertised on our website and on social media. But we also do a lot of community outreach, performing in hospitals, in elder homes, in medical centers. And so this is what we do that is not as prominently seen by people, but it's incredibly meaningful to us and incredibly meaningful to our community, because they feel that the Annapolis Symphony is supporting them in what they need. And I think that's the real value of an organization that is truly embedded in its society.
You really sort of define community there.
Yeah.
Have you ever given some thoughts to doing in your innovative, bringing in and performing with a rock band or something along those?
We have, and we've done some planning around it. It hasn't crystallized yet, but that's in the making. So it's all it's obviously a little bit more complicated than one of the typical concerts that we do, but we have not discarded that.
That's awesome. That's all. I've got some friends that are in a band in Philadelphia that they tour Europe every summer, and they did a couple of years ago. They did a thing with the what's the symphony in Vienna? Is it the Vienna
Philharmonic?
Okay,
Yeah.
And it just,
I mean, there are several, but the most famous is the Vienna Philharmonic.
okay, it was in Austria somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was Vienna, but it was just amazing when you sat there and you saw these, the music comes up and next thing you know, you're like, how did this get into this rock and roll?
Yeah.
And then it comes back down again. And then you're like, okay, wow, what just, where was I just transported to?
And I think that this is what blows people's minds away is when you are in front of a symphony orchestra, is the power that this has. When you listen to it live, is something that people that have not listened to symphony orchestra ever don't realize. It's so incredibly powerful. It's like when you are in front of a phenomenal sound system and you crank the volume up all the way up, and you feel the vibrations in your body. A symphony orchestra is the same, and you feel the vibrations in your body, and it's incredibly physical and emotional at the same time.
Well, there's nothing different. There's nothing better than live music performed right there. I mean, you can be on as many DVDs or streaming or, and it's not going to be the same with 2 or even 5 speakers sitting in front of you. Okay. Despite the Maxell commercial where the guy's got, it's not like that when you see a live performance. I remember, again, we'll go a band called Tower of Power, which has a real heavy jazz, horn section. The first time I ever heard them live, I mean, totally blew away every single album that I'd ever heard of them. I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you get here when you get some of these professional companies that we have here. Do you play any instruments yourself, or do you just wave that stick?
I grew up playing the violin. I play a little bit of piano and some other instruments, but basically the violin is my main instrument.
We need to have a bow off between you and Natty.
Well, Natty will win.
and then we can have a pilot off, and we'll see who can fly the plane better. So
he will win too.
For those that don't know, we did a podcast a while ago with Natty Dre Blake, who is the
Concertmaster.
Yeah, he's a concertmaster, and he's a violinist,
and also the director of the academy.
And he's a pilot with Delta, I think.
He's a pilot with Endeavor, with flies with Delta, American Airlines, and United. So,
it's be interesting to see. He did a little bit of I'll have to dig back up the old podcast. He did a quick little thing with us when we recorded that with his violin, but that would be kind of interesting to see. But I want to mention that to support the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra, the easiest way is to come and experience it. Okay. And you can do that any number of ways. You can become a member. You can get a season ticket, buy an individual ticket for an individual performance, and you can tell your friends about it to go out and see. And then when you do come, tell them how great of a time that you had when you were here. And as a nonprofit, people can throw money at you too, I think, right?
Yeah, they can always go to our website and make a donation. We make it easy for them. And the performances are there are all kinds of different types. So you can attend the holiday pops, which is very low key, or the free Labor Day pops that we just had. Then we have the regular Masterworks programs, which are more formal, but still a great way to experience symphonic music. And then we have other ways. We also perform in other places like Strathmore. And that's another
that's a wonderful
opportunity that I would encourage people to experience, because even if they have heard the orchestra at Maryland Hall, the orchestra sounds even better at Strathmore, because Strathmore is a concert hall. Maryland Hall is a multifunction auditorium and performing arts center, but Strathmore is a concert hall specific for symphonic music. So it's like driving a normal car or driving a super Lamborghini.
Right.
You notice right away. You don't need to be told, the technology involved is very obvious.
Yeah, and for those that haven't been to Strathmore, I mean, it's a beautiful. They like to call it North Bethesda, but it's really kind of Rockville.
Yeah,
that's that whole.
Yeah,
we don't want to be Rockville. We're North Bethesda thing going on there, but it's not that far. I mean, it's about 40 minutes from here.
Yeah,
and it's a wonderful venue. And I mean, are you going to be doing all of the masterworks there?
Not all of them. We do 3 of them, and usually we perform there on Sunday matinees. So it's easier because the traffic is not as bad. So it's a pretty fast ride of 45 minutes, as you said. And I think it's worth experiencing at least once. And then you can decide
where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, obviously for people living in Annapolis, Maryland Hall is very convenient because it's very close by and it's a wonderful facility as well.
True. Well, you can find out all the information, get the tickets. You can support the ASO. You can buy a membership. You can buy a season ticket. All at AnnapolisSymphony.org. And I do recommend you get on their mailing list, just at least so you can keep up to date, because there are always some surprises that are coming out of this.
I think that's always a good thing to do, because we are always so busy that we tend to see things and we say, I'm going to do this, and then we forget. So we'll remind people of the performances that we have coming up, and then that's the easiest way to be able to not miss something that you might be really interested in.
Fantastic. Well, Maestro Jose-Luis Novo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the music, and congratulations on 20 years. And I'm looking forward to the next 20, I guess.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
This has been a bonus podcast from Ion Annapolis. Please visit us at ionannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Ion Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.